When I was there, there's probably about 200 missionaries, give or take. I mean, it fluctuated, but usually about 180 to 200. And I think I want to say only like maybe 30 of them were Spanish, maybe 40. I don't know, maybe it was a little higher than that. But yeah, well, it did seem like at least 70% were English. But there is a pretty big Spanish-speaking population there. I mean, there's definitely sides of town like there's definitely parts of like South Dallas, for example, where you know, it's almost like nobody speaks English for miles. So there's definitely tons of Spanish areas. We pretty much just cover like northeast Texas. So Fort Worth between Dallas and Fort Worth, there's probably about 40 miles. Fort Worth has their own mission, and the boundaries seem to meet about in the middle. Arlington and Grand Prairie are two suburbs that Arlington's in Fort Worth, Grand Prairie's in Dallas Mission. And it goes all the way to as far east Texas as you can go. I think we may have covered like a little bit of Louisiana, but not much. And then as far north in Texas as you can go, north of Dallas, that is. And we covered a little bit of Oklahoma and like a teeny bit of Arkansas, I think. But it was the type of thing where I think we'd cover like one ward in Arkansas, like one ward in Oklahoma. So as far south as we would go, I don't know. There's a city called Nacogdoches, which I know is south, but other than that, I can't remember how much further south the mission goes. But it seems like most of the areas are like surrounding Dallas. There's a lot of suburbs. I mean, there's tons of people in Dallas and in the suburbs. And so I served in 7 areas, and I was within 45 minutes of Dallas the entire 2 years. I mean, I was always in some suburb, but there are some missionaries that they go out east to like Tyler, Texas, or some of the places out there. And it sounds like it's a very different culture out there. I don't know too much about it other than you know, less population, more cows, stuff like that. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and the church is, I think, for the South, the church is pretty strong in Atlanta. But when I got to Dallas, I was surprised at how big the church was. For example, you know, you could go to, like, I served in the suburb of Grand Prairie, and there's the Grand Prairie First Ward and the Grand Prairie Second Ward. You know, I was kind of surprised by stuff like that, because in Atlanta, like, there might be like Atlanta First Ward, Atlanta Second Ward, but like, there's not like a suburb that has like, that I'm aware of, that has like multiple wards named after it. So I thought that was a little interesting. I think part of that too, though, may just be the population in Texas is so much bigger. So like, if you've got like a small suburb in Atlanta, it could just be like 10 or 15,000 people. But if you have a small suburb in Dallas, it could be like 50 or even 100,000 people in that suburb. So I think part of it is just population. But yeah, the church is really strong there. There's a temple there. I think it's been there since the 70s. It did seem like almost every stake had a Spanish branch or a Spanish ward. And most of them seemed like they were doing pretty well. In fact, I'd say, I almost wonder if most stakes even may have had multiple Spanish units. That wouldn't surprise me. It seemed like there were tons of stakes. Like, for example, I served in Plano, which is just north of Dallas. There's a Plano stake. But then I also served in Allen, which is also north of Dallas. There's probably like, the two cities touch each other, Plano and Allen. But Allen has its own stake as well. You know, so like, it's pretty strong. I mean, you know, it's almost like every suburb, maybe not quite this much, but sometimes it felt like almost every suburb had its own stake. It wasn't quite that intense, but yeah, so there's plenty of stakes. I feel like the church population there has exploded in recent decades. I was actually just in Dallas for some interviews. I'm a law student, and I was interviewing with an attorney who's LDS, and he told me that when he first moved to Dallas back in the 70s, he was like, you could fit all the LDS attorneys, you know, at this table. You know, it was like a table of like 5 to 10 chairs or whatever. It's like all the LDS attorneys could fit at this table when I came here. And I was just like, wow, because now I'm sure there's like hundreds of LDS attorneys there now. But I think part of that is just, you know, Mormons are cheap and they want to go where the cost of living is low, but the salaries are high, and so they go to a place like Dallas. And In fact, I've heard from another LDS attorney who's like, that lives in, I think, he lives in Forney, which is East Dallas, basically. And he's like, it's funny, nobody in my ward is actually from Texas. He's like, we're all just cheap Mormons moving out here. And I mean, quite frankly, there are a lot of wards like that. I think especially if you serve in Allen or Plano, everybody there is a transplant, as they say. People just move there for work, and so it is. So that's something that's a little unique, maybe, about Dallas.